Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Brian, and welcome back to the Purely Swift YouTube channel. And this is where I'm going to teach you how to write iOS applications using Swift. So for today's video, we're going to build a typical Carousel UI component in our iOS application. So let me show you what that looks like right now. Here you see the cute little puppy, and as I swipe left, you see the next puppy, and I swipe left one more time, you see the last little corgi puppy here. And if I swipe back to the right, you'll see that I can just easily swipe through what we call a carousel. This component is actually not that difficult to build. Apple provides us with a UIPageViewController component that we'll use to make this happen. So before I get into the code, let me show you a diagram of what or how this actually works behind the scenes, and hopefully it'll make it easier for you to understand. Okay, here we go. Here's the diagram that I wanted to show you. So do you remember way back in the day when movies were shown on projectors and everything that you saw on the screen was actually, in fact, a frame on a long piece of film? So that's how I imagine this effect working. And in this analogy, the projector is our iPhone and the frame is actually independent view controllers inside of the UIPageViewController. So you can imagine swiping left on each frame or each view controller actually brings the film over to the left like this. And the first swipe allows us to see fully frame 1. And then upon the second swipe, we see frame 2 like that. So that's sort of how the effect works. And as I swipe back to the right, you'll see the same effect, but in the opposite direction. So I like to think of this as kind of what we want to build, and hopefully to be able to connect it to like a real life object should maybe make it easier for you to understand what's going on. All right, so the next question is, what do we want to build first? And I want to focus on building out this frame object, and it's basically a view controller with a UI image view inside of the view. It's very simple, so let's go ahead and create that right now. Okay, let's hop right into Xcode and create our app. So I'm going to use the single view application template right here, call it Carousel, and create the project like so. Let me use the 6S simulator, and I'm just going to run to make sure that everything is okay. Let's see. Okay. So pressing Command 3 makes the simulator as small as possible. And because I don't need a storyboard for this tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it like so. And then I'm going to remove the storyboard main from that project setting. And if we were to run the application right now, the app would crash. So I'm going to copy and paste some code that I have on another screen right here. So these 3 lines pretty much creates a window, makes it visible, and then we create our view controller so that the app doesn't crash. I have another tutorial video that I show you step by step on why I'm doing this to set up an app that doesn't use a storyboard. All right, so if we run this app right now, we'll see, I think, a black screen, and there it is. So I want to change that so that I get a white screen. Like that. And then there we go. We get our view controller being presented as our root, like that. Now let's create our UI image view and add it as a subchild to the view. And here's how we do it in code. Scale aspect fit, return IV, like so. So this is Swift's syntax to execute a block of code here with the two parens, and it'll return this image view that I've created up here. All right, so I want to add this onto the view, and by adding a subview like that, I will be able to see it, hopefully. Let's just change the background color here, like that. And I'm going to add some constraints. Okay, so I'm just going to type this out real fast. And then hopefully I will explain what it does. That. Okay. So let me do this as well. Maybe it'll make sense. Okay, so this is saying on the horizontal axis, this pipe represents the left edge, and this represents the right edge, and it'll expand whatever's inside completely so that it touches both edges. In this case, V0 represents our image view here. And this constraint is exactly the same, but instead of the horizontal axis, we're using the vertical axis. So if I run that one more time, hopefully we'll be able to see our blue view, but I forgot one thing, which is to turn off the auto resizing masks. So we see the blue image view, and let's import our first asset. So I have an image of 3 puppies that I want to bring in. So I'm just going to drag from the Finder into the panel like that. And then we get Corgi 0, Corgi 1, and Corgi 2. Let me set our image to Corgi 0. So I can do all that within the block, like so. Pretty simple, hopefully nothing too confusing, and I'll run this to show you what that will do. All right, let me turn off the blue color because it's a bit distracting. Run that one more time, and actually let me change it to black on the view controller. So okay, so now we have sort of our frames that belong to this kind of projector or this strip of film. So let's go ahead and build out the logic that allows us to move from left to right. Okay, let's go back to Xcode. And then let's create a new controller like this. A subclass UIPageViewController, and then we're going to override view to load so that we can set up some of the views that we want to have as the starting view controller. So let's call super like that. Make sure to always do that. And then, let's see. Okay. So I'm gonna do this to initialize our page view controller. Okay. So instead of using page view controller, we're gonna use our custom view controller that we just created, like that. And let's just rename that. And then we'll use that controller as our main root view controller. So running that application will give us a black screen again. And hopefully you'll know why. And it's because of the same issue we sort of ran into earlier. So I'm going to convince you that this is being shown by changing the color like so. Okay, UIPageViewController, command click into that class, and we'll see that it contains a property called ViewControllers. This property contains all of the frames inside of itself so that it knows which controller or which internal view controller to scroll to and from. So let's first set the view controller to show frame 0 like that. So set view controllers, and then we'll call view controllers like that. And we'll just create a view controller inline, set it here, and then set up a couple of the properties like that. Hit run, and we'll see that we're kind of back to where we were a couple of seconds ago, showing our very first view controller. And you see I cannot drag it yet. So that's the next piece of the logic that we want to implement. So how do we do that, right? We want to implement a protocol called UIPageViewController data source. And command clicking in that, you can see the view controller before view controller method and the after view controller method. These two methods are called to notify upon swiping left and swiping right which controller you should see. I'm going to implement the first of the two methods called view controller after view controller. And then I'm going to also kind of stub that out for now and just return nil. If we return nil here and run, the application will still be fine, I believe. So this is an important property that we have to set, and we'll just set it to self. So I've just ran the application, and I'm going to set a breakpoint in here. And as I scroll to the left, it should hit that breakpoint in the application, just like that. And because I'm returning nil, it's not going to render anything on the right. You see, that's kind of how the page view controller determines what to show. So how do we know what controller we want to show as the after view controller? Okay, so first, I want to be able to tell which index I'm currently on. And in order for me to set up that type of logic, I'm going to create an array first of image names, like so. And then, let's see, let's call this frame view controller so that we don't confuse ourselves. So frame view controller equals that. And then let's set that there. So I'm gonna create a property on frame view controller called image name. And then let's make it a string like that. This will be used to figure out which index we're on and also to set the image on the image view. Let me show you what I mean. Image name equals, let's just use the very first string like that. And then so that'll take this very first one, corgi 0, and set the image name on a frame view controller. Upon doing that, let's set the image name on our image view. Like this. And then remove the hard coding that we just did. So this bang tells the image name to unwrap its optional value. And did set is called every time you set the image name. In this case, line 21 does the setting. All right, if we run this one more time, we'll see that hopefully nothing has changed. And there we are. Okay, so figuring out the indexed value that we're currently at requires this logic here. Current index equals so view controller as frame view controller image name. So current image name is that view controller is passed from this method, and it tells us that the current view controller is here. With that, we know that the current image name is this. And then let's determine the current index. Like that. So imagine we're on frame 1 or frame 0. The current index will be 0 since the image name is corgi 0, and the index of that is 0. So if we type out this logic here, let me finish typing it and then I'll explain. Names index, no, current index plus 1. And then we'll return that frame view controller, because this method here expects an actual view controller. All right, now I'm gonna run that and then show you what that does So let's see, it's not working exactly like the way I want. Okay, here's the reason why. So we want to know if the current index is less than the image names -1, we're going to produce a view controller that the application will scroll to, like so. So this logic says, let's say for example, we're at index 0, and when index is 0, image count is 3, and 3 minus 1 is 2. That means we're 0 is less than 2, so we'll hop into this if clause here, and then we'll create the frame view controller and setting the image name with the next image, which is corgi 1. Current index, remember, is 0, so 0 plus 1 represents a corgi 1. And upon setting that, we return that view controller to the page view controller, and then it sets it as the next page. So you see that if we swipe one more to the right, there's nothing, and that's because the current index in this case is 2, and count, which is 3 minus 1 is 2, and this clause is no longer true, so we return nil. Okay, so let's perform very similar logic, but in the opposite direction in the before view controller. So I'm going to copy and paste a bit of code like that. And then, so we're doing the same thing. We're getting the index of the current frame that we're seeing. And then instead of current index less than images count -1, I'm going to do greater than 0. And instead of +1 here, I'm going to do -1. Let's run the application. So I'm going to scroll to the right, nothing. Scroll to the left, we see the puppy, we see the third puppy, and then I can finally scroll back like so. Now, without the before view controller implemented, I wasn't able to scroll from this to this and back to the very first page. And that's about it. Like I said, this type of carousel component is commonly used in the iOS world, and it's pretty easy to build considering I've only written maybe not even 100 lines of code. And yeah, trust me, it's very easy to build very seemingly complex components. But once you get the hang of how the logic works, it's not that difficult. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe and comment. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.